Yes, sorry. Yes, hi everyone. Uh, I think my first question is to Ana Paula. Has this book changed the way you see the relationship between humans and animals? Because you said you started with pigs and then you moved on to larger cattle. So it that relationship interests me in, in a sense that there's such violence and how it comes from one end to the other. Um, yeah, and I wanted to know, like, that throughout the process, your perception about this violence, the way you see this relation, has it changed?
I was already very used to writing about death. I enjoy writing about death. That's a topic that comes up in all my books. And I'm talking about the physical death. I'm not talking much about the idea of death or the death that makes us miss people or leaves a memory of somebody. I mean the physical death of the flesh. And I believe, no, I'm sure that there is death in all my books, in all of my work. Usually the death of men and animals. They're very connected in all my work. It's a kind of a violence. It's a silent violence in these rural surroundings. It's very silent. It is different than the violence from organized crime, which is very programmed. This is a kind of violence that is related to the death, and it's just like getting some little quarrels cleared out. It's a different kind of violence, but it's everyday violence, and it could happen everywhere. It could happen in any country, in any community. It could happen in the big cities, but also in the rural areas. This is the kind of violence that interests me because it surprises us sometimes. Sometimes you're just driving your car, going from your house to your work, and then you see a body, somebody who died, and nobody witnessed it. So you just see it, and then you're gonna call the police department. You're gonna try to find a way. So it's very random, this kind of random violence. So in my book, this slaughterhouse that drops liters and liters of blood into a river. I don't know how that happens in other countries, but in Brazil, that does happen. This waste of the, this rests and tribes and blood, and this happens in many places. There are even places where they had difficulty because this blood would call sharks in the places where the river flows into the sea. This is a kind of violence that is not that evident. It doesn't scare us in the beginning. And sometimes we don't even realize that certain attitudes are violent because it's a very organic kind of violence. You see it in your everyday life. It could be violent or not, depending on how you interpret it. Killing for food is theoretically maybe not that violent. However, it ends up being very violent. When I write, I try to do it without judgment. I try not to judge my characters. I try to bring the points of view of the characters so that we can analyze it from different perspectives. Usually you have like 2, 3 different perspectives and you can analyze it. And at the end of the day, all these perfect perspectives have a reason of being. You can analyze it, you will see how we get to a certain logic. I don't believe in an absolute truth. I believe that there are many kind of miniature truths that are spread around all these narratives. Yes, I think that this is something that I really enjoy in your work. You do not have answers. Everything is very in suspense, like it's still open at the end. So yes, getting back to this idea of the death and how you reflect this idea of death in your characters. I was thinking about the moment when Edgar Wilson kills a dog that had already been killed. So he's repeating this violence, he's repeating this act of killing. This is like expanding it. He's like maybe sublimating it. You're going further than what was the death of this dog.